This video is an introduction to Blender 3D modeling basics. So when you open up Blender 3D, you're going to see a basic scene with like a cube. This right here is a camera, and over here is a light source. So here's some really basic controls to start out with. If you want to rotate the scene or your view on the scene, hold the middle mouse button and it'll rotate the scene for you. And if you want to pan your view, hold shift and click the middle mouse button. And you'll do this really a lot and often. And if you want to change the view to orthographic, press 5 on the numpad. And orthographic view is used really common when you're modeling. And the reason you want to use it is all the scale and size of everything is the same no matter where you're looking at it. Say for example, I'll show you real quick. I'll have this cube and we'll add a lot of these cubes. See how it's still the same size. Now if I switch back to perspective view, the perspective view is like you're seeing it through your eye. Objects get smaller the farther it is, but in orthographic mode everything's the same size. And it's used really often while you're modeling because you'll have in many cases like a picture for the front, back, or side views. Okay, so to delete objects in the scene, you select them. To select objects in Blender, a lot of the time you right click on an object. And to delete, just press X. You'll delete object. To add a new object to the scene, hold shift, press A, and now you get this menu here. You can select meshes, curves, all kinds of things. So we'll just start out with a basic cube. And we're in object mode right now, which just deals with the object. It's for like moving objects, translating and rotating them. So to rotate an object, press R and then press X. You can rotate it on the X axis, and when you left click it sets it into position. Now if you want to undo something, hold Control and press Z, or if you're on a Mac, press Command Z. It'll undo things. And again, when you press R for rotate, if you don't press any key afterward, it'll just rotate arbitrarily in all axes. So usually you do R and then you press either X, Y, or Z. So here I pressed Y. And you can press escape at any time to if you don't want to do that or commit to that, press escape real quick. So I'll do it again, R, X, and then left click if that's what you want. You can also type in the amount of degrees you want. So right now if I press 90, it'll rotate it by 90 degrees. So I'll do it again. Let's do RX 45 degrees. So you also have the precision, so you can do R for rotate, choose the axes, as well as type in how many degrees you want to adjust. Now to translate, you can do the G key on the keyboard. G and then each axis, so like GX. Now it's constrained to the X axis. Or GY and GZ. Now you can also scale objects in the scene by using the S key. So S by itself will scale everything in all axes. If you do S, X, Y, or Z, again, you have that control over the object. So it applies these main controls in the object mode. So you have scale, translation, and rotation. Now if we want to start editing the vertices themselves on any object, make sure you have your object selected and then press Tab on the keyboard. Right now anything that's highlighted is selected. So right now everything is selected on this cube. If you want to deselect everything, press the A key. If you press A again, it'll select everything. So it toggles between selecting all or selecting nothing. And to select any vertice, you have the vertice mode selected as well. In general, right now we're in edit mode and we have the vertice mode on. So you right click now on any vertice, that'll select the. If you want to select more than one vertice, hold shift and start clicking each vertice. If you select enough forming a face forms. Now if you click on each vertice, you can now adjust. And if you click on each arrow for the axis, it'll constrain it to just that axis. Now there's several different modes. Now if you click on edge select mode, you can select each of these edges, start editing that way. Select enough edges forming a face, now you can edit a face. Now there's other useful shortcuts to select vertices. There is the circle select by pressing C on the keyboard. You see this kind of almost like a brush appears, and you can adjust the size with the middle mouse button and start clicking and holding, and you'll get more vertices anytime you click. Now if I hold shift on the keyboard and start selecting vertices, it will deselect them. And when you're done with selecting, press escape. Another way to select vertices is go into wireframe mode by pressing Z on the keyboard. And now when you select anything, it goes through the entire mesh, no matter what view you're looking at. So, you know, selecting more. And when you press Z again to get out of it. One more type of selection mode I'll show you with the sphere as an example. Go into edit mode and then wireframe mode. You do box select, and it's just in a rectangular shape. You're selecting many. And if we're doing box select outside of wireframe mode, it's just going to select whatever is in view on the surface. Now if you want to add in an extra loop to cut through a mesh, you do it by Control R, and now you see a new loop that appears. You click once to create it, and then you can position where you want this new loop cut to be placed. Let's go over the basics of just doing things with vertices. So here, back in edit mode, you right click on one vertex and we'll extrude it by pressing E on the keyboard. And you extrude a single vertex, it gives you a line. Now after you press E, you can also press either one of the axes like X, Y, or Z, and it'll constrain it to that axis. Now if you select more than one and then extrude it, you'll get a plane that comes out. If you have a face selected and then you press E on the keyboard, you now have a volume that okay, so sometimes you might have extra vertices, so I'll undo. Do that again. Now if you have a face and when you extrude it you get a volume like that. Now while modeling, you can also create new faces by having at least 3 vertices. So we'll create an extra one right here. Now if you have 3 at least selected and then press F on the keyboard, you get a new face. If you want to join 2 faces into one face, go into face select mode, right click, select those 2 faces, and then press F on the keyboard to join them. You usually want them to be as close or planar as possible. So in this example, I'll join these 2 faces. Now if you want to add more faces inside of the same face, you have a face selected, press W on the keyboard and click subdivide. Do this again real quick so you can see more obvious where the faces are subdividing. So we'll click, select the face, W, subdivide. Now you have 4 faces on there. You can select, another face like this, subdivide again. That lets you do more. And lastly, to get more complicated shapes, I'm going to show you how to do the Boolean modifier. So we'll add this cube right here, and what we're going to do is add a sphere that makes an impression onto this cube. Oh, and also very often use this cursor to move and select objects. To move this cursor, hold shift and press S, you get a menu over here. You can move the cursor to the origin or the center of the whole scene, and we'll just move this cube there. So have your cube selected, hold shift S, selection to cursor, and you moved it right there. Next we'll just add a sphere, move that right on top just like that, and select the sphere, and then holding shift right click on the cube, click on the Boolean modifier, we'll do difference, select the object as a sphere, apply that, move that out of the way. Now you see you have an impression that's been formed from the other shape, so you can get all kinds of ideas when objects look kind of complicated. You can think of them in terms of just two different kinds of surfaces and how they interact. You can do a difference, or you can combine them with the union operator within the Boolean. So that just covers about it to get you started with the basics. And also one last thing, eventually you'll need to change where the origin is within an object itself. So you have your object in object mode, hold Control Shift Alt C, and then you can set your origin to the geometry, and that can be useful. So that's about it for the basics of getting started in Blender 3D.